What's up, guys? It's Ryan Allred here with Pro Play Games. I got another tournament report and deck profile for you, going over my Volcanion Starmie list I played this weekend at the Hartford Regionals. Um, I actually just went over this exact list last week when I played it at ARG Raleigh. Um, this weekend I finished 18th place with it out of 751 players. I really like the deck, obviously. We'll just go over the deck list really quick because the last video is still up there. I'll go through the matchups I played this weekend and what I played against, how the matches went, that kind of thing. So first, let's look at the deck list. This is the list. It's kind of exact same thing as last time. We've got for the Pokemon lineup 3 Volcanion EX, 3 Baby Volcanion, 2 Turtonator GX, 1 Ho-Oh GX, a 1/1 Starmie line, 2 Tapu Leles, and an Oranguru. Just kind of what differentiates it from some of the other lists. We are running the 1/1 Starmie. I think it's super important for the Gardevoir matchup. I think it helps a lot there. We do still have 1 Ho-Oh. We're not focusing on it too hard. We have 1 Ho-Oh, 1 Kiawe. The idea is if we hit it, we hit it. I hit it probably like 10 times throughout the weekend. And anytime you do, you're just so set for that match. It makes such a big difference in the game. But building the deck around that doesn't increase your odds of hitting it enough to matter. So most of the time you have to plan your gameplay for assuming I miss the Kiawe, because most of the time you won't get to use Kiawe turn 1, or at least not onto a Pokemon you actually want to. You might be able to Kiawe onto a Volcanion EX, but honestly that sucks. Volcanion EX just doesn't do enough damage anymore. Everything has too much health. Everything knocks it out too easily. 180 health isn't enough to not get knocked out. So usually in those situations, you're better off just focusing on a baby Volcanion, putting a little bit of chip damage on, and trying to set up your board, and not having a huge liability active. We are still playing 1 copy of Nest Ball. I know I said I'm not focusing on Kiawe too much, but 1 Nest Ball gets you what you need. So a lot of times it'll grab you the Oranguru, so it fishes you out of dead hands. Against Gardevoir, it gets you the Turtonator so that you can start putting energy on that. And like everything else, it lets you grab Ho-Oh so that you can Kiawe onto it. Lets you grab an extra Volcanion, lets you grab a baby Volcanion, so that if you go second, you can grab the baby easier. Grab Staryu, it's just super, super good. It's an extra item against Garbodor, that's the only downside, but it's just a really good search. Beyond that, we have 4 Fighting Fury Belts. That's going to be pretty standard now, I would think. I really enjoyed this weekend putting 1 Fighting Fury Belt on something with another one in my hand, knowing that, I don't care if you get rid of that Fighting Fury Belt. I just want you to get rid of your Field Blower. So please go ahead and get rid of this Fighting Fury Belt. Next turn, I'll attach another one. We'll be good. I had multiple times where I used Field Blower to get rid of my own Fighting Fury Belt because I wanted to attach a Floatstone in a retreat. When you have 4 of them, you can be a lot more aggressive and don't really worry about what happens to them. So we'll go over matchups, what I played against this weekend. Starting the day off, round 1 I played against Justin Bakari. He's playing Drampa Garbodor. He's a really good player. He was at Worlds last year. He ended up making day 2 at Hartford Regionals as well. He ended up beating me 2 games in a row. He just I don't love playing against Drampa Garbodor. I feel like it's a favorable matchup, but the problem is you don't have a whole lot of control over it a lot of times. If your hand is a bunch of items in Sycamore, you kind of have 2 choices. You can either just not play the game, pass, which you'll lose after a few turns of that, or you can play the Sycamore, dump all those items, and then now they're hitting you with Trash Avalanche to knock everything out. So there's no good option there. But then you'll have some games where you set up a Kiawe, your opponent looks to your discard and he's like, oh, you only have 2 items in there, and it's like, yeah, I got to play in. I guess I got lucky this one. Um, so it ends up feeling kind of luck based in those cases. Um, so round two, I'm starting off with a loss. With the size of this tournament, a couple people will make it in with 6 wins, 1 loss, and 2 ties, so 6-1-2, but not very many. The majority of people at that record will not make day two. So to safely get into day two, you either need to go seven wins or better. Uh, so starting off with 1 loss is pretty bad because that means for the next 8 rounds, you kind of get 1 mulligan. You can mess up once. And going into round 2, my opponent flips over a Froakie, and I'm like, oh, cool, playing against Greninja. So that'll be fun. Fortunately, it was um, the opponent made a few misplays, so that kind of helped me out. So I managed to win 2 games in a row. So at least didn't turn that into another loss. Round 3, I play against John Roberts playing Tapu Bulu Vikavolt, and that's a weird matchup. It can easily go either way. In this case, it did go both ways. So I won game 1, or he won game 1. I won game 2, and game 3 went to time. We were. It's hard to say who would have won. If I had one more turn with the current board state, I would have won. But if he had an extra turn, he would have played it differently. So in that case, he might have won. It was a weird situation. But in any case, it meant that I was starting off after round 3 at 1-1-1, which meant I had no more second chances, 6 rounds left in the tournament, and I have to win all 6 of them. So at that point, I'm feeling kind of down. But what makes me feel a little bit better is that round 4 I play against Metagross. That's part of the reason you play this deck. You know that at least once or twice throughout the day, you're going to get just a free win. And it was actually against another Pro Play Games player on the who predominantly plays on the Yu-Gi-Oh team, and that's what he said when we're shuffling up. He goes, this isn't an auto loss, man. Like I'm not going to accept that it's an auto loss, and he wins game 2. Really good player. He plays to his outs and knows that if he can focus on Necrozma, if he can get some critical ends in, then he does. So game 2, I've actually taken 5 prizes, but that 5th prize was my Oranguru, and I really need to get Oranguru out so that if I get end, I'm okay. And I take 5 prizes, he's taken none. He ends me to 1, and after like 4 turns of just drawing a card, he takes 6 prizes and wins game 2. So we move on to game 3, and Volcanion does what Volcanion does, and fortunately I pull out a win there. So the next round I play against Golisopod, like a pure Golisopod Zoroark deck. That's a super, super good matchup. It was probably like a 10-minute match. Cool guy, but just great matchup for me. So I take that one. Then after that, I'm a little fuzzy on exactly what I played against. I didn't write it down. I think I played against Drampa Garbodor. I know I played against Drampa Garbodor. I don't remember exactly how the series went. I believe I won both games. I know I won the match, obviously, but again, like that's just a super weird matchup. I just don't feel like you're in a lot of control over what happens. But fortunately, I pulled out a win there. And at this point, I am 3 wins away from getting into day 2. I get paired against a Gardevoir, and Gardevoir can be a dicey matchup. That's really the reason I played this specific build. With Starmie and with 4 Fighting Fury Belts and 2 Turtonators, you actually have a pretty good chance against Gardevoir. There's a lot of room to play skillfully and be able to turn out a win there. With Turtonator, the Fighting Fury Belt puts him at 170 damage. So with 2 Steam Ups, that puts you at 230. Having Starmie on the field means that 2 Steam Ups is really easy. So all you have to do is get a Turtonator powered up or get 2 energy on him, get like 1 energy in your hand, and a Fighting Fury belt, and you've got the knockout. Which in the first few turns, like mid game, if you can knock out a Gardevoir in one shot, that turns the tide on the whole game. Because they usually have a hard time responding to even knock out that Turtonator after you did that. So this Turtonator with 1 energy on it, fun fact, Turtonator has an attack called Nitro Tank for 1 energy that lets you set up a second Turtonator or a Volcanion EX or something to guarantee that you'll be able to take your last 2 prizes. So I turn out 2 wins against my opponent, and now I'm 2 matches away from making day 2. Round 8, I play against Eddie Satavi from North Carolina. So a really cool guy playing Tapu Bulu. We had a cool series of games. So game 1, I just set up perfectly. Everything works out exactly the way I want it to. I power heater for 80, load up my bench with energy, and start taking knockouts. End up taking game 1. So game 2, we both kind of set up perfectly. So it was kind of like watching both decks play at their optimum. But fortunately, when Volcanion runs hot. So I ended up taking game 2 as well. At this point, I know that I am just 1 round away from making day 2. Finally, round 9, I get paired against a Volcanion Mirror. I actually really enjoy playing the Mirror. Sometimes your opponent can just hit a turn 1 Kiawe onto a Ho-Oh, and you can't respond, you just lose. But usually the Mirror can be pretty fun to play. In this case, unfortunately for my opponent, he ended up dead drawing both games. So he had a really rough start, and I had just a really good start. So they weren't great games, but we definitely take those. So I ended up winning those games pretty quickly. I can't say this because I'm good. I ran hot. That's kind of why you play the deck, so that every now and then everything just works out for you. So I win that one, and I'm going into day 2 at this point at 7-1-1. I'm the 8th seed going into day 2, and looking at the math, I need to win 3 out of my 5 rounds to make top 8. Get some sleep, wake up in the morning. Round 1 of day 2, I'm playing against Kenny Britton with Gardevoir. Gardevoir, like I said, it can be a dicey matchup. I play this build so that it's at least pretty close, but against a good player, like a high caliber player, you're definitely not favored. And to make matters worse, he actually played 2 copies of Parallel City. So Parallel City, in combination with Gardevoir, just demolishes this. He beats me 2 games in a row. There are a couple critical moments in the games that could have swung it the other way, but ultimately it wasn't pretty. He definitely won those games by a good margin. So now I'm looking at it, and with 4 rounds left, I have to win 3 of them. And the second round of day 2, I get paired against John Ang playing Greninja, and Greninja's bad, man. To make matters worse, he's playing Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini GX, the GX attack says for 1 water energy, your opponent has to pick up their active and shuffle it into the deck. So kind of the way I can respond to Greninja is with Ho-Oh GX, because it's not weak to water, and it does like 1,000,000 damage. So game 1, I set up this Ho-Oh. He starts with Tapu Fini active, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna Tapu Storm me, aren't you? And fun fact, he Tapu Storms me. Fortunately, Ho-Oh gets a little bit of work in before he does that, but it's just not pretty, man. He sets up 1,000,000 Greninjas, puts my Ho-Oh back in the deck, and he wins that one. Game 2, I knock out the Tapu Fini, but he sets up 1,000,000 Greninjas, he knocks everything out, and he wins game 2. So now I know 3 rounds left in the tournament. I need to win all 3 to make top 8. I get paired against a Golisopod Garbodor. I'm feeling a little bit better because Golisopod's weak to fire. It's still Garbodor, so if I have to dump 1,000,000 items, he still wins. He can turn off my abilities, and end me into nothing. But fortunately, I run pretty hot. I get exactly what I need when I need it, and I take 2 wins there. Round 4, I'm 2 wins away at this point. Now I'm feeling a little bit better. I get paired against Sam Chen, and it's another matchup against Gardevoir. And Sam Chen, obviously, also another really good player, playing a bad matchup for me. And we had a really interesting series. So, game 1, I go first. I managed to set up pretty well. And he does Parallel City, Plea GX, picks up my guys. So now my board's kind of dead. Um, from there, it gets pretty awkward, and he doesn't have any Gardevoir set up, so I'm not in the worst position, but I end up losing that game. Game 2, I set up great again. This time, he doesn't plea me, and I end up taking game 2. And game three was what was interesting. So game 3, he goes first. He has a Ralts active. He attaches an energy, and he passes for the turn. I have a Volcanion EX active and a Turtonator GX on the bench. I play 3 Max Elixirs, power up the Turtonator, Sycamore, and he puts his hand out waiting for me to show him the Float Stone or the Switch. I draw 7 cards one at a time. None of them are the Float Stone, none of them are the Switch. But fortunately, I had an Ultra Ball in my hand, and I could discard my hand down to 0 with an Oranguru on the bench. I use Instruct for 3, and same thing, he puts his hand back out. I draw 1 card at a time. That's not a Float Stone, it's not a Switch. So now I've got like all this stuff on my bench I didn't want on there. I got rid of a bunch of resources I didn't want to, just to try and take a quick win. And for his turn, he top decks the Professor Sycamore, and he has to get rid of 3 Gardevoir GX, I think a rare candy, like a bunch of resources he didn't want to get rid of either. So he does that, manages to put an Eevee on the bench so that he is still playing the game, And now we end up just playing the weirdest game where neither of us can really do what we want to because we had to start so bad. And he ends up taking the win on that one. It was pretty close, but he was just a solid turn ahead of me. So now I know I'm out of top 8, but the last win, doing the math, I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, if I win the last one, I think I'm still good for top 16, which is better pricing and better points. I win the last round against another Drampa Garbodor deck. It was a really close series. I donk him game 1, and then we get 2 real games. Both of them were super close, but he wins one, I win the last game. And waiting for standings. And there was some sort of judges discussion that took up a lot of time. So we're waiting for probably about an hour to get the final standings. And we look at the math some more, and it's like, okay, actually I think only one person with 28 points is going to get, like 1 or 2 people with 28 points are going to make top 16. And at that point, I'm pretty sure it's not me. So an hour later, we see the standings, and sure enough, 18th place. So it's 60 points instead of 80, and $250 instead of $500. Still super happy with making day 2, and with the performance I had. It was 9 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie. For the season, it puts me at 260 points out of the 400 for Worlds Invite. But the real race is going to be for top 16 for US and Canada, to go to Australia for the international championships, and then after that to Brazil, to Indianapolis, and then finally to Worlds in Nashville. Before this, I was in 8th place for US and Canada. I'm waiting to see how this shakes everything up. I'm confident I'm still going to be in the top 16, but definitely going to drop a few places, I think. But we have almost 2 months left until the stipends for Australia. So there's still a lot more that can shake out. London Internationals is going to be the biggest thing to change that. Moving forward, we have a couple new sets coming out. The Shining Legends has just been released, and that's going to be legal in the next couple weeks. Shining Legends didn't really introduce a lot. It added Zoroark GX, which is going to be impactful. But beyond that, it just isn't going to be hugely format defining. Next month, right off the heels of that, we've got the Crimson something, Crimson Invasion? Yeah, Crimson Invasion. We'll see how much splash that has. It seems like one of the weaker sets we've had lately. So unless I miss something, I think Volcanion is still going to be a force to be reckoned with for the foreseeable future. List might change a couple cards, but currently I still love this deck. It's something I'm looking forward to playing. Like I said, these exact 60 card list was posted about a week ago on Pro Play Games YouTube channel. So, definitely give us a like, give us a subscribe. There's a lot of cool content on here now, and with the new Pro Play Games A team, you'll definitely be seeing a lot more of us. Shout out to Ultra Pro and Pro Play Games, and all of my teammates, especially Zach Lesage made day 2 right alongside me. I'm sure you'll be seeing his deck profile video here too. Thanks for watching.